Hello everybody and welcome to this week's project. I'm really sorry I didn't manage to get a project up last week or a new stitch Sunday, but I had some family stuff going on that I had to sort out. Please don't worry. Thank you everyone for your amazing lovely messages. Everyone's fine. My two little reds are fine. My two girls are absolutely fine. The cat's fine. Everyone's fine. I just had to had some stuff to sort out. So anyway, without hesitation, is that the right words? I don't know. Anyway, this week's tutorial is the much requested granny square jumper. So grab yourselves a cup of tea, grab yourselves some chocolate digestives. Let's get crocheting. So for your granny square jumper, you are going to need to make two identically sized granny squares. Now for this one, I use Pink Box yarn, the cotton yarn. I will leave a link to the colour pack below that you can buy with all these colours in to make this combination. So I'm a size 10. I know YouTube makes you look like a lot bigger. I don't like it, not gonna lie. So yeah, I'm a size 10 and this is a size 10. Well, I tried to make it size 10, but what I found with mine is, because obviously you need it to go under here, and mine is actually a bit tight around the old bust area. So if you're a 10, 12, so mine has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So mine has got 20 rounds. If you're a 10, 12, I would do 22 because this is a bit snug and those extra 2 rounds will make it fit around your bust. So whatever size you are, just make sure that you've got enough to go under here. And then if you don't want it so snug, just add a couple more rows. I will leave a link to a video of how you make a granny square. It is exactly the same. So just do 2 identical squares in size. You don't have to have them identical in pattern. You can do different pattern on the front and the back, but mine are exactly the same. So once you've got your 2 granny squares, then you can join, and I'm going to show you how to do all that now. So this is what my jumper looks like close up, and as you can see, all you need to do is add a neckline and some armholes, and then on the bottom it's just some ribbon. So I'm going to show you how to join your squares up and how to create your arm and your neck hole. So for this tutorial, you are going to need your 2 granny squares, some scissors or a yarn pendant. These are really good. I know this one's still in the packet. It's because I've got 2, my other one's inside, and I use it all the time. A tape measure. Now you definitely need a tape measure. I mean, you can always use a piece of string if you don't have a tape measure, but a tape measure would be good. A crochet hook, so the same crochet hook you use to make your granny squares. This is my Clover Amour and I absolutely love it. And your yarn. Now I'm going to show you with these 2 colours just so it can show up. Now I didn't make a full-on granny square. I made a granny stripe just because I didn't have time to make 2 granny squares. So I just made this bit so I can show you how to do the neckline and how to do the sleeves really. But obviously you will use your granny squares. So once you've got your bits together, let's start crocheting. So first of all, let me stand up, you can see it better. You want to measure out your armholes. Now bearing in mind this jumper is finished, so it has got the ribbon, God there's cat hair everywhere, on the bottom. So I put my tape measure where the ribbon starts, and what I did was measure out. So I measured to 32 centimeters. I don't know what that is in inches, so 12 inches. on each side, so 12 inches up or 32 centimeters, and I just popped a stitch marker in each side where it measured 32 centimeters. And then I joined the sides up from the very first stitch here in the corner all the way up, and I just joined up the sides with slip stitch. So that's just slip stitching through the 2 granny squares when they are on top of each other. Now if you want a little bit more of a seam, sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed. So mine's just slip stitch, but if you want more of a larger seam, you can just use a different stitch, like a double crochet if you're in the UK, so that's a single in the US, or a treble if you're in the UK, or a double in the US, and it just make that seam a little bit wider. But I just slip stitched my 2 sides together like so, and then I stopped when I got to here and tied off my yarn. So once you have reached your stitch marker here, you want to stop and, like I said, tie your work off, and then you want to turn your work so the top end, one of the open ends is going to be your neckline. So we're going to do the neckline and then we're going to do the cap sleeves afterwards. So if you want to pause the video and measure, obviously I'm a size 10, so I measured 32 centimeters. What you can always do is measure like a garment that you already have, like a jumper or a cardigan, and see how large that armhole is, and then just mark the amount it is in centimeters or inches with a stitch marker, and then join your sides up. So pause the video and come back when you have done your 2 side seams. So once you've done your side seams, you want to take your tape measure and a stitch marker, and I shall show you here. So I measured from, so this is my, oh you can't see, my last square here, and I measured in for my neckline 12 centimeters. Now if you want a bigger neckline, that's fine. So just pop a stitch marker where you want your neckline to start, and then make sure it's even and you have the exact same amount on this side, and then pop another stitch marker in. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working between those 2 stitch markers. So I shall measure mine out on my piece of my demo, and I will show you what it looks like when you have the stitch markers in. Can I just apologise for the rain? Thank the Lord for iMovie and be able to take out background noise, because it is absolutely chucking it down. So as you can see, I have measured my 12 centimeters one side and 12 centimeters the other side. Now what you can do just to check that you have got them evenly spaced, which is what I did, is just fold your piece in half. So you want to be just doing this at the moment on just one of the squares. So obviously when you sew your side seams up, it's going to be, you're going to have 2 squares. God, that sounded really Bristolian then. You're going to have 2 squares. So just measure your 12 centimeters on one of the squares on each side, because we're going to join it. Obviously we have to do the 2 sides the same and then join it on the shoulder seam. So once you've done that, you want to get the next colour that you're using and just attach your yarn. Now I think I'm going to go for this green that has dropped on the floor. So just join however you normally join your yarn. I just knot it. And then just chain 1 into that space. And then what we're going to do is we are going to treble crochet or double if you're in the US up until we get to your first stitch marker. So that's yarn over, insert your hook, just go into that very first stitch where you chained 1. So just treble or double if you're in the US, all the way across. Can you imagine if this was actually a jumper and I was wearing this? Look at the colour. If you have done a chain 1 in between your 3 trebles for your granny square, you can just pop a treble just into the space, but I don't do that with mine. I don't put a chain space, so I'm just going to go into the next stitch. But if you have got a chain 1 in the space here, just do a treble or a double into that space. So we're just treble into here, all the way along. Like I said, if you're unsure of how to do a granny square, I do have a video on granny squares, and the amount of tears I had over granny squares is unbelievable. So please do not give up. Lisa Marie, who's admin on Crochet Beginners Group, will testify to the amount of nervous breakdowns I had over granny squares. And I don't actually recommend granny squares if you're a brand new crocheter, because I think they just stress you out. So keep going with your trebles until you get to that stitch marker. And then once you reach that stitch marker, and look, I've obviously got a snapped piece of yarn. Once you get to this stitch marker, just take your stitch marker out, and then we're just going to do a double into this stitch, and then we're going to double until we reach the next stitch marker. But if I were you, I would pop your stitch marker back into that first double, just so you know where it is, because sometimes it can be a bit tricky to see the stitches. So if you want to pause the video and just double until you get to your second stitch marker, and double into the stitch that the stitch marker is in, and then treble until you get to the end, and pause the video, and I shall meet you when you've reached the end of this first row. So I am just working the very last treble of the row. So this is what it should look like. So we have our trebles up to that first stitch marker. Then we have doubles, and then trebles again right until the end from that second stitch marker. So this bit is done. This is where obviously your head, neck is going to go through. So we're going to work on the shoulder seam. So what you want to do is chain 1 and turn. And now we're just going to work up to this stitch marker here. So you want to do a treble into this very first stitch where we chained 1, or double if you're in the US. I think it always gives a neater edge rather than chaining 3. I just chain 1 and then do the proper stitch into that first stitch. And then we're just going to treble until we get to that stitch marker, all the way along. So that's what your work should look like. So we're going to stop there, we are not carrying on. So then you want to chain 1 and then turn your square over. Now we want our neckline to have this kind of shape. So what we're going to do now is we're going to treble or double 2 together. So I've just chained 1. We're going to go into this very stitch here, so you want to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and then pull through 2, and we're not going to finish off the stitch. We're going to go into the next stitch as if we're doing another treble. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and you should have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Now I would pop your stitch marker, then we're just going to treble into the next stitch, and I would pop your stitch marker just into that very first stitch, so you know, because sometimes it can get quite confusing when you do like crochet stitches together. And then we're just going to carry on, and we're going to treble all the way until we reach the end. So if you want to pause the video, and I'll meet you back when you've finished your row. So I'm just coming to my last stitch here, and I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn. So this end here at the seam is going to stay straight, and it's the neckline that's going to be curved. So we're going to treble until we get to the last 2 stitches, so into that very first stitch, because you've chained 1. Actually, I think these colours go quite well, you know. That would make a nice Christmas jumper if that was in red. I know I mentioned Christmas. So keep going until you have 2 stitches left. And that's why it's a good idea to pop your stitch marker in, because sometimes they can be a bit tricky to see, like I said, if they're crocheted together. So there you can see we have 2 stitches left. So we have 1 here and our last one here. So we're going to treble crochet 2 together again. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and don't finish that stitch off. And we're going to go into that very last stitch. So you have 4 loops, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And I would pop your stitch marker. I'm not going to do it up because we're going to turn our work, and so this is going to be, I mean, you can do more if you want, but I think the next round just gives enough, because we're going to have it on the back as well, because you're going to do this on both the squares, so it's going to give sort of quite a bit of length. So for this final round, oh, I'm all caught up. What am I doing? Right, for this final round, we're going to double crochet 2 together. So into that first one, and into that second one, and then treble into the next stitch. And I'm just going to pop my stitch marker. And then we're just going to treble until we get to the end. And then we're going to fasten off. And that's one side done. Right until that very last stitch at the end. If you did want a bit more length in this part, you could add a few more rows of just trebles. Don't do the two trebles together at the end, because obviously your work's going to get smaller and smaller. If you want that, that's fine. If you want a bit more of a curve, but you can always add, if you don't feel that it's sort of enough space for the neckline, just feel free to add a few more rows of just trebles, no double trebles, 2 stitches together at the end. So I'm just going to fasten mine off. So I'm just going to chain 1, grab my scissors, and that is one part of our neckline complete. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to this side, and we're going to do, you want to do exactly the same as we did on this side. So we are going to attach our yarn. I always knot my yarn because I'm really scared that it's all gonna like come undone. And I don't want all my hard work ending up in tatters, literally. So you just want to chain 1, like so, and then we're just gonna treble or double into that very first stitch. And treble. So if you have a look, the first stitch we did here, because obviously it's reversed, so that's, we need to not work into that stitch because that's actually a double. So now you want to chain 1, you want to turn your work, and because we're working the neck line, we're gonna crochet, treble crochet 2 stitches together. And then treble into the next stitch and pop our stitch marker in, and then carry on trebling until you get to the very end. So if you want to pause the video now, and I will meet you when we are back here. So I've just got to the end, and I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to turn. And then I'm going to treble until I get to the second stitch from the end, and then we're going to treble 2 together. So there we have our 2 stitches left. So we have the one here and the one here, and we are going to treble crochet 2 together. If I can get the stitch marker out. And then we're going to chain 1, and we are going to turn our work. And then this is going to be our last row, so we're going to treble crochet 2 together. And then just continue trebling until you get to the end, and then you can fasten your work off. So you want to do this on both squares, so you'll have to do this sequence twice. So you can either rewind the video. I will try and put the written pattern up on my blog later today. So once you get to the end, just want to do your last stitch into here somewhere, anywhere. That's not even a treble. Chain 1, snip your yarn, fasten off, and that is one neckline done. Now if I lie this out and lift the camera up, you will be able to see what it looks like. So that's our neckline done. Now what I did with mine is obviously you join these 2 together, so you'll have the square from behind as well. So I'm just going to fold it over because they're exactly the same, and you just join at the shoulder seam the 2 squares. Obviously don't do this with yours because you ain't going to be like getting your neck in. I'm just using this as an example to the one behind. So obviously they're going to be one on top of each other, and they will look like this. So pretend there is another side here. And then you just want to slip stitch together up the top to create your shoulder seam. I will show you on this one. As you can see, it is just slip stitch together at the top. And then what I did with mine, just to make it look a little bit fancy pants, is I just slip stitched in a contrasting colour all around the neckline once I had joined the shoulders. So once you've joined your 2 shoulder seams, meet me back here and I will tell you how to do the sleeves. Once you have slip stitched these 2 seams together for your shoulder seam, you want to turn your work, and what we're going to do, because obviously your square will be joined up to here, I will show you on this one. So you just want to treble crochet in each stitch around. So as you can see, I've just trebled into every stitch around here. So on the, because yours is going to be different to mine on this bit, because obviously I've done stripes but this is a square. So just treble into every stitch around, and then we'll join. I'm just going to join mine here so I have a seam, but obviously yours will already be joined. So you just want to go round, so just not doubled, we're not crocheting them together because otherwise you won't be able to get your arm through. and you just want to treble all the way around. Now what I would do is I would count the amount of stitches that you have, so you can make sure you have the same amount on the other side. So trebles all the way around, or doubles if you are in the US. Obviously yours will be joined here. So you just want to continue all the way around that armhole until you get back to where you started, and then you just want to slip stitch into that armhole, chain one and turn, and just continue going in rounds until you get to the length you want. So mine, I did 1, 2, 3 rounds, and then just finished it off again with the same colour as I used for the neck. So it is really, really simple to do. I will pop the written pattern onto my blog later on today, and I will leave the link below. Now for the bottom, I just did a round of rib stitch. So I did plain trebles for 1 round. And then the next round I did treble, like back stitch, back post and front post, and alternated each stitch, and then that gives you this rib look. And then again I finished off the bottom just slip stitching some contrasting colours. The yarn, again, I said I used is the yarn pack from Love Crochet. It's a paint box yarn pack. I will put the link in the description box below. If anybody has any problems with making their jumper, please contact me. I am more than willing to help you. If you go onto my blog, you can send me an email via the blog or leave a message below. So thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial. Again, I'm really sorry that it's late, and I'm really sorry that I didn't make the granny square, but I just wanted to get it up because I've been promising for weeks and weeks that I would get it done. Don't forget to check out our Crochet Beginners Group merchandise store. I will leave the link below. All profits are going to charity. They're supporting 2 charities, so Mind UK, which is a mental health charity, and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, 2 amazing life-changing charities. So don't forget, you can find me on Instagram, you can find my blog on WordPress. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon. Take care and happy crocheting.